Hello everyone. This is a series of 6 video clips to introduce some basic knowledge about CSS. Here we like to learn about what is CSS, how to use it. Most of the time CSS is linked to web page design. However, before learning CSS, we expect you also have some basic knowledge of HTML. If you don't know anything about HTML, maybe you can watch the videos that we develop for the HTML part. The very first question that you have is, what is CSS? CSS is short for cascading style sheets. It's widely used on HTML and XML. CSS has no display content. It is only a control. The purpose of using CSS is to separate the content and style of the web page display here. What are the benefits of CSS? There are a good list of benefits here. First is rich in styling, easy of use, is reusable, is very small, compact file size, is cascading. It can be used by multiple CSS also. And then it is preparing for your future web page display. Now, when we look at one example of CSS file, here first we look at the HTML source. Here we have one very simple example here. In line number 9, we have a header element. The header element containing the information of leaping above the water. Now, with the HTML file shown here, when you put into a browser, you can see this image without any underlying. But on the other hand, if we have an external CSS file, which is the second source code that you can see at the bottom, then we can define what is the color, what is the control of the font size, what is the decoration of the text, as well as the background color. So all these are defined for the H1 element here. When we put to a browser together with the CSS source code and the HTML file, then the appearance will be something like at the bottom. Elements are the basis of a HTML document structure. Now in HTML, the most common elements are easily recognizable, such as P, tables, span, A, and div. Every single element in a document plays a part in its presentation. In CSS terms, that means each element generates a box that contains the element's content. We have two kinds of elements. One is block level elements, the other one is inline level elements. Now for inline level elements, these elements will generate an element box within a line of text and do not break up the flow of that line. Now, one good example of an inline element is the anchor or the A element. Other candidates can be strong and EM elements there. These elements do not generate a break before or after themselves. So they can appear within the content of another element without disrupting the display. A second type of HTML elements is block level elements. Block level elements generate an element box that fills its parent element's content, as well as it cannot have any other elements at its size. In other words, it generates breaks before and after the element box. The most familiar block elements from HTML are P and div. Now, very often we have one question. How can we use CSS? In the video, one example that we have shown that CSS can be linked to an external file. This is exactly the first point. We can use a link tag. By using the href, we can link to the demo1.css externally. Well, this is not the only way we can use this CSS. There are other forms. The second method is by using the style element. We can define the CSS information inside your HTML source code. Also, we can use the import directive. So we can define with the import function, then we can specify a URL, at the same time, the location of the CSS, like this example, sheet2.css. Of course, the most primitive method without linking anything externally would be using the inline style. Say, for example, when we look at the last example in the slide, then we can have the element P with the definition of style, specifying the attribute color with the value of gray. It can be done also. Now, thanks for watching this video. This is the end of the first video.